Hi, and welcome to TalkRx with Dr. Neha. This week I have a special guest, Bo, and he has agreed, he's on his lunch break, and he's agreed to spend some time with all of us and share his communication question and allow all of you to learn while he does. So thanks and welcome, Bo.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you are like quite an efficient guy. You're here on your lunch break and you're going to go back to work.
Yes.
So I know your mom. Right, and I just want to say thank you for coming and being willing to try this.
Of course.
All right, so what's on your mind?
Well, considering that I am on my lunch break, my question actually relates to being an employee and also being a student.
Okay.
There is somewhat of a balancing act and also a way that you have to kind of judge how you're going to confront each problem that arises, especially when there's a lot of role strain on being a student, being a son, and being an employee.
Yep.
So I was wondering, since you're a successful person, or you may be deemed so, how do you kind of check your ambitions, and what is the proper way to kind of handle being a student and kind of going into a field which would be kind of competitive, or even just being a student itself and being in a school that is increasingly getting competitive with students coming overseas as well as everyone else in the country just kind of coming towards that, striving for that one goal.
Yeah. So. Well, first of all, I got to say, I love your eagerness, and I love that you're interested in achieving, right? And I also hear how hard it is to balance all of these roles that you play because you have many hats, right? In the same day, you're a son, a student, and an employee, right? And now a guest on my blog, right? So it's about what you value, really, right? So do you know what you want to study?
I do.
Okay,
yes.
What is that?
Neuroscience.
Oh, wow. Okay, so neuroscience is what you want to study, and you're passionate about it. What do you like about neuroscience?
Well, it's something that's intriguing to me because it's something to do with what every person, what you could consider a person, has.
Yeah.
Which is a brain that allows us to kind of navigate through the world and through a variety of different circumstances.
Yeah.
So that's, to me, it's something that's increasingly interesting, and with every year that passes by, there are new things that come up, and there are new things to learn about the field.
Oh my gosh, I love your...
Die out quite yet.
Say it again.
It's something that won't be dying out quite yet.
No. And I'd say even beyond humans, right? It's the animal world, anything that's really alive. Right? So fascinating. Now, you learning neuroscience, it sounds like you have a pretty clear idea, right? You like the scientific piece. You like that it relates to the variety in like the way in which we interact in the world, and we grow and we learn, right? So not only do you love learning, you love the organ that enables that. So you know what you value, right? I think all of your life, I think like all of my life, each of our lives, is life school. Okay. We kind of artificially break it up into I'm a student, I'm a son, I'm an employee. But the truth is, if it was all one big school, would you say that your brain learns to navigate each of those as part of school? Right?
Yeah, that's a good way of thinking of it.
Like different lessons. We get different lessons in each one of them. But there's a way that in order to make it manageable, we call it these different, like from this time to this time, I'm an employee. Right. So tell me some of your... like your lessons in each one of those schools.
Okay. Well, as being a student, I guess a lot of the things coincide, which would be learning to value each other's opinion in a specific matter. Yeah. So, for instance, for school, the most basic thing would be to wait your turn. Same thing as being an employee would be to respect the authority or your boss, and as well as the customers that come in.
Right.
Who are intrigued, and especially with your parents, you have to learn to allow them to tell you what may be the better choice in a specific circumstance.
Yeah, so. And in all of these, right, what you were saying is in school, it's more with your peers. In school, the way that you would hit authority would be with your professors. Right. When you need to take tests and exams, right? Then you move into your work life, and it might be a boss, but you also there have colleagues. So it's the difference between, and then at home, there is... if you have siblings or not, or cousins, right? And then there's parents, right? So there's those two roles transcend all these, quote, mini areas of your life, right? And they look like they're different, but they're actually the same, right? And so you'll notice people, when I work with them, I work in corporate settings as well. And when I do, sometimes if they have an issue with their boss, I can trace it back to an unresolved issue with their parents.
Interesting.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right.
Or if they do just fine with authority, get everything in on time, except they don't get along with their peers, where do I trace it back to?
Their cousins or siblings.
Yep.
Similar to that. And
somewhere along the line, or let's say my little niece is an only child, and she is much better with authority than she is with peers.
I see.
Right? Because she never got that interaction. And so it's interesting because it's usually dependent behaviorally on how you were raised and what the circumstances of your upbringing were. Right? So that's one aspect. The other one is, do you know David Eagleman?
I have not heard of him.
Okay, David Eagleman is a good friend of mine. He's a neuroscientist, and he wrote some pretty incredible books. One of them's called Incognito.
Okay.
Another one's called The Brain. And I think he takes neuroscience, and I think what I love about it is sometimes people think, oh, science or math, they're boring, right? I'm an engineer, I'm a doctor. The truth is it's fascinating, and our job to get other people interested in whatever it is that we're doing is to make it fun and engaging to learn.
Right.
And I think he's one of the people in neuroscience that does that. So
I'll have to check him out.
Yeah, I would love that. And he has TED Talks, and he has all these really fun and engaging ways to help you learn. And so I think, was there something specific that, did that answer your question, I guess?
Yeah, somewhat.
Okay, tell me if there's anything else.
The other thing was to check your ambitions.
Okay.
So when would it be appropriate, if you're trying to attain a goal, would it be fine to have some for the ground to be kind of coarse, to be going against your coworkers, your siblings, yada yada, in order to attain the goal? So, for instance, I had an issue with a classmate of mine. We were doing a group project. It was just the two of us.
Yep.
And he was in charge of a certain aspect of the task.
Yep.
But he wasn't able to finish it.
Yep.
So I ended up having to take over and finish it and turn it in. I didn't know whether it would be appropriate to tell the professor that, I had to do the majority of the course, the workload.
Yep.
And how that would affect both my peer as well as how that would go with my professor.
Yeah.
So I ended up not saying anything and allowing us to both of us get a good grade. But I felt like I was kind of cheating.
Unfair.
Yeah, it was a little unfair that had to happen.
So that's a great question, because if there's ever a time that you feel like you've done an unfair share of the workload or someone didn't keep their agreements, right? I would say the first step is you getting clear. How do you know whenever you think of this? Like right now, did your body give you any signals as you were saying it? Could you feel anything? Your heart racing, stomach turning, anything like that?
Yeah.
What could you feel?
My heart was racing because I kind of relived it just a tiny bit, just thinking about it.
That's right.
And it was, to me, incredibly unfair that I had to stay up an extra night in order to finish the work. Yeah.
So I would say that before you go to your professor, because that's going to go to going to authority, it would be the equivalent of telling on your sibling to your parent, right? The first thing you'd want to do is have an honest conversation with your friend, right? Because what I wonder is, how clear were the agreements made up front about whose job was what? Sometimes if things aren't set up clearly up front, they can be kind of ambiguous, and you might think someone was supposed to do something, and they didn't really have that idea.
Okay.
Right? So the first thing is, I would pay attention to your agreements. And I wrote this book. It's called TalkRx, right? In chapter 21, I call it He Said, She Said. And it's about making agreements. And you may learn something there, right, on setting up agreements. Also, if someone's not meeting their agreements, and let's say to get it done before the deadline and kind of get it in on time, you went the extra mile for it. The next step is regrouping with that person and saying, hey, this is having the courage to say, this is what I thought I was supposed to do and what I thought you were going to do. It felt like I did more than was asked of me. Right. And I feel disappointed and upset. And I'm wondering, what happened for you? You know, you have to stay curious. You're him and I'm you. Right. That's kind of how it would sound, right? But most times when we have hurt feelings, we're not curious at all. You know what I'm talking about?
We're trying to get through it and get on to the next moment, right?
Except if you shove it under the rug, it doesn't go away. Because when I asked you, like, hey, what would that be like? It came instantly. Right. So your brain, because you're a budding future neuroscientist, which I love, holds memory, emotional memory, very strongly. So that if you don't resolve this and have this conversation, guess what? The next time you think somebody isn't doing their fair share, you're going to have an out of proportion reaction that says, you're going to do your part, aren't you? Because I'm not, right?
Right.
And all that means is, and that person's going to say, whoa, 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 like what's going on? And what it'll mean is you didn't resolve the last one. Right. So now you're much more guarded moving forward. I see. Does that make sense?
It makes plenty of sense.
It's called an amygdala hijack. So definitely you'll learn about that in neuroscience too. Okay. Was this helpful?
This was, yes. I appreciate it.
Yeah? Tell me some of your takeaways. Were there any takeaways you had?
Well, towards the end, that was something that really clicked to me. Is I have had experiences where I've had something that just took a little bit too much.
Yeah.
Both out of me and the other person, and I shouldn't have put all that, emotional response to them. Yeah. And it was definitely due to a prior, experience.
So the beautiful thing is the brain and your emotions, it doesn't let you get away with just shoving it under the rug. Right. It'll come back, and it'll come back in spades. So thank you so much. So if any of you have experienced that you think to yourself, oh, it's not worth actually having the honest conversation. I'm just going to sweep that under the rug and listen, let bygones be bygones. But then you find it in another situation, another name, the same thing is happening, but it looks different because it's a different person and it's a somewhat different situation, but not really that different. Your brain doesn't let you forget it. So I would say, now this is kind of funny, but I think of myself emotionally as a self-cleaning oven. If you stay clean, right, and something comes up, you have the confidence to have a conversation about it, you can just clean things up as they go, and it doesn't have to be a big deal. You don't have to have this huge emotional response for something that might be a misunderstanding on someone else's part. So if you want to keep your relationships and you want to keep your energy up and clear and clean with other people, make sure you clean things up as they go. And congratulations on knowing where you're headed and having the confidence and the courage to go for your dreams.
Thank you.
So thank you, and until next week.